If you're thinking about moving to Spain, at some point you're going to face this question. Should you rent or should you buy? And most people automatically assume I'll just rent first and figure it out later. Which sounds sensible, but in Spain it's not always that simple. Because the rental market, especially in popular areas, is one of the biggest challenges people face when they move. And in some cases, buying actually makes more sense much earlier than people think. So let's break it down properly. Let's start with renting. On paper, renting seems like the safe option. Flexibility, lower commitment, time to explore different areas. And yes, in some cases, it is the right move. But here's the reality most people aren't prepared for. The rental market in places like Costa del Sol, Barcelona, and Valencia is highly competitive. You're dealing with limited supply, high demand, and landlords choosing tenants carefully. And also, a lot of times they want to rent it out in the summer months to get more money. So when the summer comes, you're left with nowhere to live. So what happens? Good properties will go fast, very fast. And then there's the upfront costs. This catches a lot of people off guard. Typically, you will need 1 to 2 months deposit, first month's rent, so you could easily be paying 3 to 4 months upfront just to secure a place, and even more in some instances. So what's the other issue? Short-term versus long-term rentals. A lot of the nicer properties you see online are actually short-term or seasonal rentals, which means higher monthly cost, less security, and not ideal for settling down. So finding a good long-term rental at a fair price in a good location takes a lot more effort than people expect. Now let's talk about buying, because this is where a lot of people hesitate. Buying feels like a big commitment, especially in a new country. But here's the shift that's happening right now. In many parts of Spain, especially in the Costa del Sol, buying can actually be more stable than renting. Because when you buy, you lock in your cost, you're not dealing with that rental uncertainty, and you're building equity instead of paying rent. So if you're planning to stay for a few years, it often makes more financial sense. Now, of course, there are costs involved. When buying in Spain, you need to factor in purchase taxes, typically 7 to 10%, legal fees, notary and registration. So you're usually looking at around 10 to 13% on top of the purchase price. And this is important to understand upfront and cater that into your budget. So how do you decide? Well, here's a simple way to think about it. Rent first if you're unsure about the area, if you're only planning to stay short term and you want flexibility. But consider buying if you know where you want to live, you're planning to stay long term, and you want stability and investment potential. Here's the key point. Don't just default to renting because it feels safer. In Spain, that can actually create more stress, especially in competitive markets. A smart approach: some people rent short-term first, explore properly, and then buy within 3 to 6 months once they understand the area. And this gives you the best of both worlds. So the bottom line is, renting gives you flexibility, buying gives you stability, and the right choice depends on your plan and not just what feels the easiest. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes people make when moving to Spain and how to avoid them. Because some of these mistakes can cost people thousands, but they are avoidable. So I'll see you in the next episode.